Hello and welcome to the second Ask the Expert from the Caravan and Motorhome Club. I'm Graham Turner, I'm the social media manager, and over here is Martin. If you want to give a bit of a rundown of you.
Hello, I'm Martin Spencer. I'm Club Technical Manager. One of the main things that I do for the club is to oversee the practical advice that we give to members, prospective members, anybody thinking about having a leisure vehicle holiday, really.
That's good, because that's what I'm going to be asking you about. This instalment is going to be talking about people who are new to the lifestyle or people who are considering going touring or camping. So we're going to run through the different types of options available: caravan holidays, motor holidays, camper vans, glamping, camping. But then the scenario I was talking about is like we're talking about someone who hasn't got a caravan, hasn't got a motorhome, hasn't got a camper van. That's the umbrella. The leisure vehicles are the umbrella term for that big mountain of different options. And I guess if they're considering that, and what sort of type of vehicle would be best suited, but what's the sort of range of options available, and what are the top line merits of a camper van or a motorhome?
The most common sectors, if you like, are camper van, motorhome, caravan. Camper vans, those are the smaller vehicles, your typical Volkswagen camper or those kind of things. They're compact. They ideally suit a couple. A lot of them will accommodate a couple of children as well. They're not ideal for a big family. They're a small compact vehicle, but that makes them very easy to keep. You often keep them on your own driveway. They're there ready to use whenever you want.
That's me.
That's you.
Yeah.
So they suit a very mixed range of use. It might be just a day trip to the beach for a picnic. It might be a weekend. Maybe you're let's say perhaps a keen fisherman, and you're at work all week. Friday night, take the camper van into work, head straight off from work with all your fishing gear, drive to a campsite. Following morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, if you want, you can be out on the river.
That's spontaneity, one of the things, isn't it? The spontaneity.
Yeah,
you don't have to.
that's right. It's that kind of, well, everything's there. I just need to jump in the van and off we go. It's a very versatile vehicle from that point of view. You can do longer trips with a camper van. There are people who will happily tour for weeks at an end in a very, very compact vehicle. But you do have to be fairly organised if you're going to do that. Your storage space is relatively limited.
So I did that for 2 months in Scotland. I wouldn't say I'm the most organised person, but you're right. The spontaneity thing is a great appeal with a camper van, I think. And with an awning stuck on the side, which we got, it doubled your space.
Double your space. Put a bike rack on the back of it. Take your mountain bikes with you. Most of these are pretty good as tow cars as well. So why not pull something else behind it? Stick a boat behind
it. Into caravans.
Well, you could, but I'm thinking more boat, windsurfer, jet ski, horse box. They are an absolutely fantastic way to support an active hobby, where you need to take equipment with you. The van itself is your accommodation, but it's a vehicle. It's a workhorse vehicle. Remember where the origins of the base vehicles come from. They're commercial vans, so they're designed to transport stuff, either inside it, on top of it, or behind it. So they're really, really good for that kind of activity-based holiday.
So camper vans, great, day trips and everything. Caravans, what are they best suited? What are the pluses and what are the pluses of caravans?
I think caravans really are such a broad sector. Size, from tiny little caravans to absolutely huge ones. You can get caravans for 2 people, caravans for 6 or 7 people. You can get caravans that are as expensive as a motorhome, or you can get caravans that are perfectly serviceable but a few years old for almost next to nothing. It's the most diverse sector from that point of view, and therefore there will be something to suit pretty much anybody. But the key advantages they have, I would say, is any remotely modern caravan is pretty well insulated and generally has pretty good heating in it. So they're quite versatile in that sense of they're not just a summer holiday tool. You want to get away at Easter or earlier than Easter in the year, it will still be quite comfortable. If you want to carry on touring into the autumn, it's still going to be comfortable. Even if you want to go away for Christmas, New Year, you might need an extra blanket overnight, but it's still a perfectly viable option to do. Absolutely. Very versatile from that point of view, and they really suit families, I would say.
In fact, I've also heard of people using them as a garden room or an office when they've got them parked outside. It's in extra space, things like that. So it's versatile.
If you're fortunate enough to be able to keep your caravan at home in your back garden, perhaps, they really come into their own. We've seen this through the COVID-19 pandemic with club members telling us of all of the wonderful ways they've put their caravans to use when they couldn't use them for holidays. So everything from schoolrooms, office space, chill out space for chill out space for either parents to get away from children or children to get away from parents. So somewhere to hide the kids' birthday presents that they're not going to find it, or even just somewhere to give yourself a change of view. People have camped on their own driveways quite a bit. They've been used as isolation units for family members who need to stay apart from others. So they really are a very, very versatile thing in that sense as well. So the larger vehicles are what we mean when we're talking about a motorhome. They're the ones that have a caravan-like back on a van or truck chassis.
Is that how you tell the difference between a campervan and a motorhome? It's sort of
that's really the difference between a campervan and a motorhome. There's some blurring of the boundaries. We could talk all day about the different terminology and specifications, but fundamentally, with motorhome, we're talking about the larger vehicles. So they share a lot of the advantages of the campervan in terms of the ease of use. Off you go, don't have to tow anything, but with also some of the advantages of the caravan, with usually a bit more space, a bit more storage space, so they tend to suit a longer holiday a little bit better, and with insulation standards and heating standards that are also very good and allow you sort of multi-season use. Like a campervan, you're buying both a vehicle and an accommodation unit, if you like, and therefore they are relatively expensive to buy new, but they'll generally last many years, and therefore you can pretty much set a budget and go out and look for one that meets the budget, and it might be 5 years old, it might be 10 years old, it might be 20 years old. Whatever you can afford, you'll find one, and generally they don't depreciate very quickly. So if you can afford to go in at a relatively high price, you're not going to lose all of that money.
Just on that though, if you can't afford, you can't do the outlay, or if you want to, I'm curious, I don't know whether I want to invest, a few grand in a motorhome. There are options to hire. There are options to try before you buy type things.
Yeah, particularly both caravans and motorhomes you can readily hire. Depending on where you're going or what kind of vehicle you want, the prices vary. Shop around. There are many companies offering different kinds of service there. Very popular for going to festivals with, say. Always good to get to a music festival and have your own toilet. Also suits
Especially
if
now.
you're perhaps traveling a distance. Let's say you live in maybe south coast of England, and what you want is a holiday in the Highlands of Scotland. You perhaps don't want to spend 2 or 3 days travelling up to Scotland and then 2 or 3 days travelling back if you've got your own motorhome. Why not hop on a train, hop on a plane, get up there in a day and pick up a hire van close to where you need it? Or of course the other way around, if you're coming down from Scotland wanting to go to the southwest maybe. So hire can suit a lot of different things, but what it's really, really good for is to see whether you want to commit to buying. As a try before you buy option, I would always recommend it. I think if you don't have experience with these kind of vehicles before, there's just a chance it won't suit you, and it's better to find that out sooner rather than later. But more likely is you find it will suit you, but it will help guide you to get the right vehicle. There are umpteen different types of vehicle, small, large, whatever it might be, and making sure you've got the right one to suit your needs and what you want to do with it is really important. And you might have to hire 1 or 2 of different types to determine that, and it's money well spent. What you're really going on a staycation kind of holiday for is not so much to experience the vehicle, it's to experience the destination that you're going to.
Yeah.
And if you hire a motorhome or use some of the glamping options that we can also provide through the club with glamping pods and yurts and caravans that you can hire on site, what all of those will give you is the feel of what it's like to be on a campsite. A lot of people have a preconception of what that's like. It may be based on experience from many years ago when facilities on site were rather different to perhaps what they are now. Get out there and try it. It might not be quite what you expect it to be, and it might be a lot nicer than you expect it to be. We put an awful lot of effort into making the on-site experience really great. And remember, it doesn't really matter if you turn up in a £100,000 motorhome, or you turn up in a £4,000 second-hand caravan, or you turn up in a camper van that you've hired for the weekend for a couple £100. You're going to get exactly the same experience on site, really, because you've got the same view out the window, and that's really what it's all about. Choose the vehicle that suits your needs, but don't forget that what you're actually buying into, if you like, is the experience of staying in some wonderful locations.
That's a really good point, actually. I mean, we're talking about people getting away their way, and it's very much, if you want a quiet holiday, if you want a family holiday, if you just want you and the dog, it's all catered for. We have got glamping options with yurts, camping pods, there's tent camping. And we've also bringing online some new accessible units as well. It's basically a really good way to experience and try before you buy by staying in these sort of places. But also, if your parents have got a caravan and they go caravanning holidays, but you haven't got a caravan, you can stay in one of the glamping pods. They can be in the caravan, and then you're having a family experience together.
I think a kind of inclusivity is a real theme through all of this. If you've got children, it really suits it. If you've got pets, you want to take your dog or your cat or whatever you've got within reason away with you, that's fine. If you're taking your caravan, your motorhome away, nobody's going to stop you taking your dog with you or any other pet. Not all hotels will accommodate that. As you say, the whole multi-generational holiday idea, you may well find that you have family or friends who have maybe they have a camper van, maybe they have a caravan, maybe you do or you don't, but you can blend all of those things together on certainly some of our sites where we have the glamping options available as well. And staying together on site is a wonderful experience. It's really, really nice. The other thing, one of the things that you touched on there, Graham, was the accessible, disabled accessible glamping options. But I'd also say that a caravan or motorhome can often suit anybody with particular needs as well, in ways you might not always anticipate. You can get wheelchair accessible caravans and motorhomes. As with all wheelchair accessible kind of facilities, it adds a cost, but it is viable to do. And once you're on site, you'll find that we have pitches with hard standings. We have good access roads and pathways and accessible toilets and shower box. So that it lends itself to that kind of inclusivity as well. But also maybe less obvious things. If you're visually impaired, taking a familiar accommodation space with you is an awful lot easier than going to an unfamiliar hotel room.
One of the areas I've heard about as well is that there was a member and they had an autistic child, and having familiar surroundings is very important. And you've got your home,
a safe space.
Yeah,
it's a safe space. It's a familiar space, and when it needs to be, you can shut yourself away from everybody else if that's what is needed. So it is, in a strange kind of way, it's a holiday where you're getting out into the countryside, and there might be many other people on site, but it's also your private space when you want it to be.
Right, Mike. Well, we've gone through all the range of different accommodation types and vehicles, and one of the common things that brings it all together is the sites. We've got the huge network of sites from five pitch ones to hundreds of pitches. What do people do when they get to sites? What can they expect?
Oh, it depends on the site, of course. As you say, we have a very broad range of options available. It fundamentally breaks down into two networks. There's shall we say, the proper campsites, the ones that we run ourselves, which are generally larger. You're generally going to get normally full facilities on there, so not just your fresh water and your waste disposal, but you'll have toilet and shower blocks and those kind of things. Some of them you might find restaurants on. Generally, what we really focus on though is the environment, shall we say. It's what it feels like, what you can see. Predominantly our sites are rural. We do have some that are city-based or on the edges of cities, but predominantly you're out in the countryside, and really that is the main appeal, I would say, is the fact that you may have a Scottish loch in front of you, or you may have a view from a cliff top over the sea, or you may have you may be on a beautiful countryside surrounding you, and you really have that feel of being part of the environment that you're in, rather than the comparison perhaps of being in a hotel room where you're in, generally speaking, an urban environment. You feel constantly aware of other people very close around you.
Ask you, actually, I mean, but for people who haven't been on site before, I mean, is it, pack them in? Do you get as many people as possible? Is it
very much not? We try very much to avoid that. On those larger sites, you will tend to get a row of pitches, but it hopefully won't be row after row in straight lines. It will be much better landscape than that.
How far apart are
You will
they?
you will have separation between them. Yeah, you should, even if the site were absolutely full, you should always be at least 6 meters away from the next caravan or motorhome in terms of a sort of wall-to-wall distance.
Mm.
So it is, if you like, naturally distanced. You're not living right on top of each other. The other network that I mentioned is what we call certificated locations. And these are small sites where you'll never have more than 5 caravans and motorhomes on them. They tend to often be on farms. Sometimes they're a field behind a pub, which is very pleasant. Sometimes there are visitor attractions and things like that. But particularly the farm-based ones, you may well have really quite sizable field available with only 5 caravans and motorhomes in it. You could be tens, 100 yards away from your neighbours if that's what you want. And your neighbours actually are probably more likely to be chickens and ducks and sheep than they are another caravan or motorhome. So
Those
it's
smaller
very
ones,
much that kind of engagement with the environment. You really do feel that you're out in the rural splendour.
but the smaller ones, they don't necessarily have all the facilities. And just for someone fresh to this, like I
Yeah,
think,
it varies actually. When I first started, which is a long while ago now, when I was very young, that certificated location CL network really was a field with a tap in the corner of it. It was a very basic provision, and you had to take everything you wanted with you, really. So you had to have your own toilet facilities on board and that kind of thing. Over the years, people have changed perhaps slightly in what they expect from even those smaller sites. And what you find now is that the majority of them have a mains electric hookup, so you're not reliant on the limited power you can get from a 12-volt battery. And a good proportion of them have toilet blocks on, even on those very small sites. So they're becoming more like a miniature campsite than, as I say, a field with a tap in the corner of it.
okay,
But they haven't lost that charm of being small scale, typically rural based, and that feeling of almost staying with somebody else, staying with the farmer or whatever it might be.
okay. Those are good for people who want quite, probably the quiet, rural type experiences. Family, kids, do sites have facilities for them as well?
Yeah, a lot of them will have playgrounds. So a handful of them have restaurants and bars. But I think really when you're talking of kids and caravanning, the it's one of the characteristics, I would say, both from my own experience and what I've seen of other people, is actually once you get kids away in a caravan or a campervan, whatever it might be, all of a sudden something quite strange seems to happen. I've never quite worked out exactly what it is, whether it's something to do with the scale of the accommodation, if you like. A caravan is a bit more of a sort of, it's like a child-sized house, or whether it's the fact that within that relatively small space, a family really seems to come together. You can't realistically put the kids to bed early in the evening and they won't hear you talking or watching the TV or whatever it might be. You tend to all get up at the same time. You tend to pretty much all go to bed at the same time. You tend to do things together. And with kids, that even means helping out with the setting up of the caravan. I can remember when I must have been probably 7, I would think, probably when I started. And I immediately wanted to do things. I wanted to help with
Yeah. this is how you get the kids to wash up. This
Yeah,
works.
exactly. You get sent off to refill the water container, or to empty the wastewater, or you help with leveling the caravan, or you help with when you're about to set off back home or onto the next site. You need to check that all the lights on the back of the caravan or the motorhome are working, and you can't see that if you're the driver, so you send the child to the back and they tell you if the lights are working. And there's so many different things that you can get kids involved with.
It's an
And
adventure for kids, I think. It's because I've witnessed it myself. I've been part of it. It's like it's all these washing up isn't washing up when it's in a camper van or a caravan. You know, going on a little adventure, it's perfect. So I mean, it's good for a family holiday, and bringing all that together is an inclusive family experience. And you know, that can't be bad, can it? Really.
And then there are other things that we do as well, often on site, where we may have, if so many of the sites you can observe wildlife. So often there'll be information available. It might be an information board, it might be a children's worksheet or something like that you can get. And to go out with kids who maybe haven't, particularly if you live in an urban area, maybe you haven't seen a lot of that diversity of wildlife. And to go out there and explore and find things you haven't seen before. And that applies to parents as much as it does to children. And it is just a wonderful experience to see that, experience it, learn about things together. And it is such an inclusive activity. It's all about living together and doing things together.
That's one of the real benefits of touring and the sort of staycations that we're offering. I mean, we hear that a lot, and we know this. We do it ourselves. The other thing is our little furry children. You know, we're all dog friendly. I've got 2 whippets, and they love going out in the camper van. But we have facilities specifically for dog owners, don't we, as well?
Yeah, most of our sites have dog walks on them.
Have dog washing facilities at some of the sites as well.
Dog washing facilities on them.
Well, the thing is, I mean, from personal experience, and I know that a lot of our members are dog owners, and it's a real bonus that, you know, you can take your dog on holiday with you. Because kenneling fees, I mean, for 2 dogs for a week, it's hundreds and hundreds of pounds. You practically pay for a holiday, and that's a real bonus for us. So the other thing is experience freedom. I'm wearing the t-shirt. A hard sell here, which is the glamping proposition, where we've got the glamping pods and the yurts. We have a proportion of those which are dog friendly as well. So even if you're not going in your own leisure vehicle and you're staying in one of these, you can actually take your pet as well. Okay then, Martin, we've got some questions here from members that we got through Facebook. So we're going to go through these quick fire, and starting with, right, do you need a special driving license if you tow?
Not necessarily. Any standard car driving license will allow you to tow a caravan and will allow you to drive a motorhome or campervan. The key difference that kicks in is if you gained that license before the start of 1997, there is no practical limit on how large a caravan you can tow or how large a motorhome you can drive. If you got your normal driving license after the start of 1997, there are some restrictions on just how big a combination of car and caravan or how big a motorhome you can drive. That's something that we can talk you through. You can have those more restrictive licenses upgraded if necessary, but you would have to take some training and you would have to take a further test.
So anybody below 40, basically, they would have to do that. Anybody over 40, they can drive.
But only if they wanted to tow a really quite large caravan, probably with a 4x4, or if they wanted to drive a larger than normal motorhome.
Cool. That brings on to a very good question. So, vehicle matching. Is there a vehicle to caravan ratio? How does this work?
Yeah, what we tend to call outfit matching, with a particular car is suited to towing a particular caravan, is one of the main topics that our technical advice service helps people out with, because it can get a little complicated. Partly to find the relevant facts and figures about the weights and capabilities of the car and the weights of the caravan. The principle we work to is that clearly you need to be safe, you need to be legal, but we also think it should be a comfortable tow. Often you don't really want to push the capabilities of your car to the absolute limit, because that isn't going to be the way to have a pleasant holiday. We go through all of that. We look at what the car manufacturer says the car can tow. We also apply some guidelines of our own that are particularly relevant if you are new to towing or you have relatively limited towing experience. And we look at one or two issues around performance as well. So we look at sort of power to weight ratios as a rough guideline of whether it's going to be capable of getting you up hills and that kind of thing. So there's a whole series of criteria we would look at for that.
And how would I find out if my Nissan Micra could tow a 10-ton truck? You know, where would we go for that information?
It's really two ways that we offer a service to help with that. One is available if you're a member of the club. You can do all of this online. We have a database of cars and caravans. It's got, I think, if I remember correctly, about 130,000 different types of car on it, and I think around 30,000 types of caravan. So there are huge numbers of combinations that you can match up, and it will give you an indication of whether they are compatible or not. But if you don't want to do that yourself, or particularly if you're new to this kind of world and you don't know the terminology and you don't know the guidance that we would normally apply, then pick up the phone, give us a call, and we'll do it all for you. We'll use that same database, but you tell us what you've got or what you're thinking of buying. We'll go through all of the numbers, we'll do all the calculations, and we'll give you the guidance on whether we think it's a good combination or not.
Right then, next question. So driving, is it easy to drive while you're towing? Any top tips?
It's probably easier than you think it is. It can be a little intimidating because it's different. It's unfamiliar. Most of us are used to driving probably your typical car. You're used to having clear visibility to the rear. You're used to being very familiar with where the corners of the car are. When you put a caravan behind it, all of a sudden you can't see as clearly behind. You're going to need almost certainly extension mirrors on the side to see past it. And you're very conscious of that big white box behind you, if you like. Actually, what you find is in almost any circumstance, it's easier than you think it would be. Out on the open road, it's really no great challenge at all. If you're in heavy traffic, you're sort of changing lanes on a busy dual carriageway or something like that. Yeah, you've got to pay a little bit more attention. You've got to be aware of the size of the caravan behind you. If you're in a parking area in a confined space, then yeah, there's a little bit of new skill that you have to develop, particularly if you need to reverse with a caravan. And that's really where it's well worth thinking about perhaps taking some specialist training, something again that we can facilitate for you. We run a network of training courses around the country. Not necessarily essential, but if you want to learn how to do things right, and if you want to move yourself up that learning curve a bit quicker, and particularly if you want to build up your confidence, it's a really, really good way of, in a day or a couple of days of training, will really, really help.
I think that's
take away a lot of those initial nerves.
I think it's a confidence thing. It's not hugely, difficult. It's all about having the confidence to be able to do it. And I think the training courses that we run, this isn't the hard sell. This is just a fact. It just gives you that space off-road So basically, you could actually, you know, in a safe environment, you can confidently, you know, do these maneuvers.
This is the thing that people are always most worried about. What happens when I have to empty the toilets? And the answer is all of the waste is contained in a sealed container. You remove that from outside of the vehicle, comes out through a little hatch in the side, and you carry or wheel it away to a disposal point, and you take the top off a spout and you pour the waste away. It's gone in seconds. It's generally combined with a chemical in the waste tank that means it doesn't smell in the way you might anticipate it would. It can even be a pretty blue colour if you wish.
It's like it's to summarise, it's very simple. It's a cartridge. At some sites we even have machines that do it for you. You just get the cartridge, pop it in, it switches it out, all gone, bang, poof, finished. So
it takes seconds. I don't know that I'd say it's not the kind of thing you necessarily do for fun, but it's really not a great problem in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah,
it's clean, it's easy, it's very quick.
Get the kids to do it; they'll love it. Finally, who are you going to meet on a site? What sort of people? Campers, caravanners, motorhomers. We're talking about a bit of myth busting here, Martin.
Yeah, there's perhaps an impression that it's all an older generation. That's very definitely not true. As I said earlier, it absolutely suits families. That might be parents and children. It might well be grandparents and children as well. But certainly there will very, very commonly be children on sites. Younger families, certainly it's a great way for younger families to spend time together and maybe have more holidays or longer holidays than they can otherwise afford. Once you've got your leisure vehicle, the marginal cost of using it is not that great. So why only have one holiday a year? Let's have a few long weekends as well, and maybe an autumn or a spring holiday. Basically,
what I found personally is there's a sense of community, and that's really important. It's we're a club. We're all stakeholders in this organisation, and people have a lot of pride in the site and the reputation of the club. And we've got a community called Club Together, which is on our website. And there's a special staff new to Caravan, new to motorhoming section on there, where people who go and ask questions and the community actually support with the answers.
As an organisation, we are a community very, very much. So the people you meet on site may or may not look quite like you. They may be older, younger, whatever. But they all have the same motivation. They all want to be out in the outdoors. They want to be experiencing that freedom, to pick up on what it says on your shirt. And they very much are a community who will step in and talk to you and help you and provide you with advice and guidance, as will we as an organisation ourselves. We're here not just to sell you stuff, we're here to help you enjoy what you're doing. So if you have questions that we haven't answered here today, go on Club Together and other club members will help you find the answers you want. If you need help with things like outfit matching or the technicalities of driving licenses or tyre pressures or repairs and servicing and those kind of more technical issues, then we have a technical advice line. That's open to anybody. You don't have to be a club member. So if you're just thinking of buying for the first time, or you're wondering whether your car could tow a caravan, that kind of question, pick up the phone and talk to us. Drop us an email, and we can give you that in-depth advice without there being a hard sell behind it, because that isn't what we're about. We're about helping you have the best holiday you can.
Thank you for joining us. I hope you decide to experience a staycation with the club and touring. Tune in for our next podcast and our next screening. We do these every month. We work on recommendations of what you want the next Ask the Expert topics to be around. And thank you once again.